Hello and welcome to Media Queen TV. We're chatting about Know Your Rights with the Know Your Rights Group founder, Mike Palmer, joining us from Melbourne today. Welcome, Mike. Great to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
A little bit about Mike, if you don't know this amazing man. He has been working as a success coach and life coach for almost 30 years, inspiring and empowering people to be the best they can be in all areas of life. During that time, he also did some contract work for the Victoria Police for 13 years. After losing that contract to a bankrupt interstate company, he started to look into certain government activities that didn't add up. He began by looking into traffic fines and was shocked by what he discovered, and also worked with quite a few people to start the Aussie Speeding Fines team, helping people defeat all manner of unjust and unlawful fines. He then spent many years in court fighting the banks over mortgages. Again, he was completely gobsmacked by what he learned from his time in the court system, and worked with another group of like-minded people to start Bank Secrets Revealed, which is a group committed to unveiling all secrets the banks don't want you to know. He then helped combine these groups into an overarching group called the Know Your Rights Group, who've been doing radio shows, live video updates, webinars, live seminars around the country for the past 10 years, teaching people everything they need to know about their rights. And as Mike says, and I love this, those who don't know their rights have none. Amazing, yep. Mike. Wow, what a journey you've been on.
It's been an interesting one for sure.
Amazing. And of course, you were awake well before the whole pandemic happened, and you've been doing your radio show for at least 10 years now, haven't you?
Yep.
Been a long time. And what have you noticed, pre-COVID versus post-COVID? What have you noticed of how things have changed?
Well, I mean, look, COVID was really great as far as waking a lot of people up. When we first started, we were really just banging our heads against a brick wall, constantly trying to get people to see what was really going on, behind the veil, if you like. And COVID really sort of lifted that veil, and it forced a lot of people to question. I mean, a lot of people, obviously chose to stay asleep and roll up their sleeves and all the rest of it, but it did wake a lot of people up, and like it put us on the map. I mean, we were just getting hundreds of thousands of views on our videos and similar things to our listeners to our radio show, and we absolutely bombarded with emails and people just wanting to know, well, how do I deal with this? What do I do? How do I not lose my job? All that sort of stuff. And so from that point of view, it was really good. And of course, what happens is that flow-on effect. So, people started obviously asking about COVID, but then they go, oh, gee, what's this about taxes? And what's this about fines? And what's this about rates? And, starting to ask questions about everything now. So, and that's certainly been, one of the big positives since COVID.
Yes, I've certainly noticed that as well. I interviewed David Icke back in the day, and back in 2016 when he toured Australia, and woke up a few years before that when a friend said, "Oh, 9/11 was an inside job, don't you?" Yep. And I had no idea at the time, And he said, "Watch this video, watch this video." I started to do a whole lot of research, and sure enough, once you wake up to one thing, you then start to question all this. It's like.
Yeah. And that's again, that's why I say, with my success coaching work that I do, once you expand your thinking and you expand your being and you expand your realm or your world in one area, it automatically expands it in other areas. And that's where COVID has been, really positive, because people are starting to question everything, essentially question the mainstream media narrative. And that's been really, really positive. So, yeah.
And I want to thank everyone who's joining us live. I can see quite a few of you joining us right now on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch, wherever you're joining us from. Hello. We've got Corinda Marley with us. Hello, Corinda. Saying hey, Mike, as well. We've got Doug, oh boy, good to see you there on YouTube. Now, we've got a question here from Salvador, and what we're going to be chatting about. He says, does your book work here in Minnesota for taxes in the US, and which book would you recommend?
So, look, I guess the beauty and the limitation, the two sides of the coin, is that everything that we do is written by Aussies who have studied Australian law, and it is specifically for Aussies. Now, when I say Aussies, I do include New Zealanders in that as well, because their system is very similar. So, look, there's a lot of similarities between the fundamental legal principles around the world, but when it comes to something specific like the taxation system, the US taxation system is a little bit different to what the Australian system is. But in fact, in a lot of ways, the US system is actually much easier because there's actually specific forms that you can fill out in the US that just say, I'm not filing any more personal tax returns. So there's actually forms specifically for that. So it's actually much simpler in the US. So, yes, we do have a chapter in our book on, the truth about taxation and the truth about the ATO, but that is going to be a little bit different in the US.
Thank you for that. And thanks for that question, Salvador. We've got Glenda here from Kalgoorlie. Good to see you there, Glenda. We've got Rhonda Palmer also. Hi, guys. Hi, Rhonda. Good to see you there. Thank you so much for joining us. And if you do have questions, please pop them in there. We have one also from Paul L here. I thought the Banking Royal Commission was to help those that got cheated to get a chance at getting heard. At the end of June, it's all over and no government helped.
Yes, it's all about appearances, and that's what they do. They hold off and hold off and hold off from doing any of these commissions, investigations, any of these things until there is enough pressure that forces them to, and then they go, all right, look, we've got to put up appearances. We've got to do some kind of an investigation to make it look like we're doing something, and that's what they do. They railroad it through. They essentially, we've investigated ourselves and found that we've done nothing wrong, so off we go again. Or they'll put some puny little fine, that sounds like lots. Oh, they've got $100 million fine, but I mean, to CBA or NAB or whatever, that means nothing. That's it's pocket change in the CEO's top drawer sort of thing. So, and it's all about appearances, and this is the problem. It's only when we all really stand up together collectively that we can actually force change and stop them in their tracks. And one of the prime examples that I like to give people is the director ID. There was all talk about director ID going back, 18 months, 2 years ago, and you have to get the director ID and you have to sign up. And there's that many CEOs that just said, no, I don't have to sign up. I'm not going to sign up. I'm not going to hand you all my private personal information again. You've got all that you need. And no. And I think, because I covered this actually just on a recent update, and there's still something like 700,000 or 800,000 directors, company directors here in Australia that have just said, no, I'm not signing up for the director ID. And what can they do? This is the thing. When one or two people stand up and go, no, I'm not going to buy into your rubbish, they sort of, stomp on them and shut them down. But you get 700,000, 800,000 people, they just go, oh, okay, but we can't do anything now because it's a numbers game. There's an old saying: if you owe the bank $1 million and you can't pay, you've got a problem. If you owe the bank $1 billion and you can't pay, the bank's got a problem. And that's the same thing. If 1 or 2 or 10 or 50 people stand up, that's going to be a struggle for them. You get 100,000 people standing up, and it's going to be a problem for the system. And that's what we're always encouraging people to do. It's all about the numbers.
Yes, people power, and that's the thing. How does the government have control of the people? Is by divide and rule, and they have people living in fear. Right, this is what we saw through the whole 100%. Pandemic. How many people were in fear?
Still now.
Still now. And the minute you get conscious to it and you get informed, you can get empowered. And that's why it's beautiful what you're doing with the Know Your Rights group is you're informing people and you're helping them get empowered around their rights. Because, I've got here the actual, the Constitution of the Australian government. Look how thick that is. I mean, that's just, a lot of people are not going to go through this whole book, right, and know their rights, right, know about the Constitution, etc. So, it takes time to study this stuff, and sometimes you don't know what to believe, you don't know what information's really accurate, etc. So, how's that journey been for you, Mike, in finding the truth for yourself?
Yeah, it's been fascinating because, as I say to people, and I warn people up front, I said, do you really want to do this? Because I promise you, once you go down that rabbit hole, you can never come back out the same way again. So it's a warning, and it is a rabbit hole. And you'll start with one thing and said, personally for me, it was fines. That's where I started and started looking in and, picked up the Road Rules Victoria publication. And, the top line on the opening page said, this document is to be adopted as law in Victoria. So, well, hang on a minute. Why don't they just say this is the law in Victoria? Well, because it's not. Oh, and they actually tell you that in black and white. Oh, okay. So hang on. What other things do I think were the law or were, and some way? And then it turns out that they're not. And then you go down into taxation, and you find out that the ATO is not even a legal entity. They haven't been properly gazetted. There's actually high court cases that say that, and you're like, hang on a minute. And then you start looking at rates and local government and local councils. And I thought they were one and the same. No. Local council's one thing, a local government's another thing. And you start understanding these distinctions, and whole world opens up, and it's fascinating. And what we try and do with the Know Your Rights group is make it as fun as possible, because as you say, you pick up the quick and Garrett annotated constitution. It's 1,008 pages, and you're just like, oh my god, overwhelmed. How am I ever going to get through this? Well, you don't have to, because there's so many things online now, and what you can do is you can search things, and so you can go through and put in a search term, and especially with things like AI and stuff like that, and you can bring up all the relevant sections that have to do with fines or taxes or the Queen or whatever it is that you're interested in, and it makes it much simpler to learn. We've got courses, we do live events, we have radio shows, we do video updates, and we always try and introduce a little bit of sarcasm, a little bit of skepticism, a little bit of humor, because you're always going to learn more when you're having fun. And so we try and make learning about the law fun. I mean, even our books, they're all written so that when we wrote all the books and worked with the other people who wrote the other books that we work with, we said, all right, we need to give this to our 14, 15, 16-year-old teenager and make sure they can get their head around it. If they can understand it, then bang, it's going to be good, because it's going to be easy for other people to get their head around too.
It's a great saying too. The more fun you have, the more money you earn as well, which is
absolutely
a great saying. And really, if you're going to live life at all, why would you live it miserably, right? And this is the thing. Sometimes people do go down the rabbit hole, and they do get very upset and very angry, which I think is part of the process. Is that you will realize that we've been lied to for years about all sorts of things,
100%.
and as you start to wake up, you end up almost in this shock state, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I've been lied to about this and this and this, and it's quite disconcerting. However, it is great that a lot of people are waking up. They're starting to question things. They're starting to do things more their own way. Now, talking about council, now this third tier of government that was added, could you tell us a little bit about that, the third tier of government with the councils? A lot of people say you don't have to pay your rates, but then at the same time, I know people that didn't pay their rates and that lost their property as well. So there's probably ways and means to do things. So could we talk about that?
Yeah, 100%. So first and foremost, there is no third tier of government at all. There are only two tiers. Okay, there's federal or Commonwealth, and then there's local or state. Now, where people get confused is that they think that local government means their local council, but that's not the way it works. It's like when you talk about, say, the United Nations, and they talk about a member state. It doesn't mean a state as in the state of Queensland or the state of Victoria. It means an actual country. So when you go into the Constitution and you look at, local government, what they're talking about is the actual state government. So that's the old colonies that at Federation became states. Now, in 1988, question 3 of the referendum says, do you allow for the establishment or continuance of a system of local government? And Australians overwhelmingly, resoundingly voted no. So what that should have technically done is actually eliminated the state governments as well. But of course, that wasn't the plan that they wanted to work with. So they just sort of pushed that aside. Now, it's interesting. I think it was Victoria was the first in 1989. So in 1988, we all said no, absolutely no local government. So in 1989, Victoria goes, I know what we'll do. We'll get the state government to introduce a Local Government Act, 1989. And lo and behold, this somehow magically authorises local councils to act as local governments. And that is not the way it works, okay? Again, that quick and Garrett annotated constitution that you referred to before clearly states that local councils are only able to act as a department of the state. They can't act as a third tier of government. Okay, they can only, because people go, oh, but local councils, local government aren't in the Constitution. They absolutely are in the Constitution. Okay, but they are mentioned as a department of state. That's the only way they can lawfully operate. They can't make valid binding bylaws. They can't be doing all these things. Now, when it comes to rates, the problem is, so, there's the old saying, do you want to be right or do you want to be effective? And unfortunately, the two don't always, go together. And as we said before, sometimes it requires people power. Even if you're right, that you still need people power to overturn wrong decisions. Now, unfortunately, at the moment, the councils essentially own the courts, and the courts will always side with the councils when it comes to rates disputes. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to inform and educate people about the steps behind that. We've actually got a webinar coming up next Sunday that is all about rates and local government and land titles and all of that. And we're educating people about that so they can then spread the word to others. And again, then when we get 100,000, 200,000, 500,000 people that understand why local councils aren't actually authorised as representatives of the Crown to collect rates on behalf of the Crown or the monarch, that's when we can start putting together some class action cases, things like that, take those to the High Court, and that's how you have it all eliminated that way, not by John and Jane Smith trying to challenge their local council rates and getting steamrolled in the local courts.
Yes, great, thank you. We've got Simon Smith here, says, can we pay our rates and utilities accounts with bills of exchange? Can you explain?
Look, we have heard of some people having success with that, and again, this is the problem with the current legal system. It is supposed to be a science, and yet it's become an art. Now, the law is either the law. It's black and white. You can do this, you can't do this. You must stop at a red light. You must not exceed a 60-kilometre-an-hour limit. They're supposed to be definitive. So therefore, like a recipe, if you put 2 eggs and, half a cup of flour and, a spoon of sugar and you put it in the oven at 180 degrees for 30 minutes, you should always get the exact same result. And it should be that way with the law as well. That if you raise this argument or you raise that argument or you tender that method of payment or you write that letter word for word, you should always get the same result. But the problem is that's not how our legal system works. It is far more dependent on who actually receives that letter, who actually receives that payment. If you go to court, it depends whether the barrister or the prosecutor played a round of golf with that particular judge or magistrate, the day before and won or lost. There's all these different factors which should not come into it. Pardon me, these magistrates and judges are supposed to sit as, impartial, independent arbiters. But they will never do that unless you know how to stand your ground and force them to do that. So this is the thing. And again, I'm sure, many of your viewers have experienced this before, that, especially over, say, let's say the last 10 years, we feel like we have to fight for everything. Telstra sends you a bill and there's too much, and you end up on the phone 3 different times for an hour each time to get the bill fixed. You get a water bill that's incorrect, and you've got to be on the phone for hours trying to fix it. Your internet provider does the wrong thing, and you're just always fighting for what should just be basic rights. But this is how the modern commercialized, corporatized system has people over a barrel, because they know that they have the power, they have the strength, they have the money to steamroll over the little guys. But if the little guys, meaning us, we the people, can band together collectively and fight back against these things, we can absolutely achieve results. So, I mean, we saw that with the abolition of bank fees, where the banks were all, finally called to task as part of that Royal Commission that one of your viewers mentioned before. And they said, no, the banks can't charge these fees. Every time they were sending you out a late notice or something, they were charging you $10. I said, well, no, they can't actually justify that. And so those fees got removed because enough people, arced up about it. So again, same thing. It's a numbers thing. When we get enough people collectively together paying their rates with bills of exchange, or even better still, joining a class action and fighting the whole concept of rates as they are currently now, that's when we're going to see those results improve.
Beautiful. Yeah, I love that. Rhonda says she's in the Riverina and has the 3 booklets. I'm not sure which 3 booklets. Are they some of your booklets there?
Probably be we do the Know Your Rights book, the Aussie Speeding Fines book, and the Bank Secrets book as a bit of a combo pack with the other groups that we work with. So I dare say that's what she's probably referring to.
Okay, beautiful. And then we've got Sue Clark, worth watching the whole interview. I didn't realise the theme was Vax injured. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Well,
Yep.
there's a lot of jab injured, unfortunately, and so many.
It is shocking. And we did our best. We tried to warn people. I mean, I got on video twice a week for nearly 2.5 years, and every single week I would get on and I'd read out all of the VAERS, the adverse reactions, warning people of these crazy numbers and saying, listen, just hold off, just stand your ground, just hold off. And look, I mean, absolutely no judgment. Some people did, some people didn't. Everyone's got their own, personal battles, their own, personal circumstances. I get that. But, as has been said, a million times before, there's absolutely nobody that regrets not getting it, and plenty of people that regret doing it. But again, you can't. This is the problem. You can't take it back. You can't get unjabbed now. That's the issue. But again, all we say to people is, okay, for whatever reason you made that choice, you were forced to make that choice. However it happened, just don't do it again. Be aware that they will keep pushing. I mean, they're still pushing even now, and they're going to be ramping things up, as we go through winter. Just stand your ground and find ways around, because there's always solutions. They might be challenging, they might be difficult, but there are always solutions if you look for them.
Absolutely. And, I stood my ground. I'm grateful that I did. However, my whole family didn't, unfortunately. And we've had a whole lot of side effects in our family, including my dad got shingles from it. And, and I guess what happened has happened. You just do your best to get that stuff out of your body. And there are things you can do to help with that. And, now for future.
Now you're correct. And then, and again, most of us, especially if you're like my ripe old age, we've had a good life. So what we want to do, most importantly, is protect our kids, and protect our kids' kids. So it's about making sure they have access to this information and don't fall for anything like that. That's the important thing. So yeah.
Yeah, and it's really a complete shift of how we've been brought up. We've been brought up to trust authority, to trust government, to think that they actually have our best interest at heart. And when you see documentaries like The Fall of Cabal, and some of this stuff is really unbelievable. The darkness, and what happened with Julian Assange, and some of the evil, like satanic stuff that happens. Like this is not just fairy tales, and this is actually happening. Some of this.
And people just don't want to know about it, and it freaks them out. And I guess I was sort of fortunate in a way, because as you mentioned, as part of the intro, I actually worked for Victoria Police for 13 years. So I ran a company. We contracted to them, and we typed up all the suspect interview tapes. Now, when I started that, I was 19, 20, something like that. And like I was hearing, our girls were coming to us with all these, horrendous stories, kids dealing drugs and people getting stabbed, and just wild and crazy stories of things that were going on, every night while we were asleep, thinking that everything was good. And you sort of think, whoa, okay. And then, that was just my tiny little world, here in Melbourne of, what happened, 20 years ago. And now you look on a global scale with, as you say, the cabal, the Illuminati, the, whatever names you want to give them. And you think, oh yeah, that's all happening, but it's all taboo and nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody wants to think about it, but it doesn't change the fact that it's going on, and it's going to keep going on, and it's going to keep getting worse unless people do start talking about it and, shining a light on that darkness. The darkness can't exist if there's a light shining on it. It's as simple as that. That's why Bank Secrets Revealed was written, to reveal the secrets that the banks don't want you to know. All those sorts of things. It's there because they get away with it, because they keep it all hidden. And when you shine a light on it and you expose it, they can't hide from it anymore.
Absolutely. And it's amazing how blatant they are with their symbolism. And there's so much in our face that once you start to see it again, you don't unsee it.
That's it. But this is what they're like, because they've got away with it for so long, especially here in Australia, because everyone's, she'll be right, mate. No, she won't be right, mate. She's a bloody mess, mate, with all due respect. But they know that that's most people's attitude. And so they know they can get away with it, because they go, okay, all right, 9/11 was an inside job. So what are you going to do about it? The ATO is not even a legal entity. The High Court said so. What are you going to do about it? Local councils aren't a valid third tier government. What are you going to do about it? And that's their attitude, because they know that most people just go, oh, I don't know, it's all too hard, and I don't know what to do, and I'm just one person, what difference can I make, and all that sort of rubbish. But that's the thing, one person added to another person, everybody fighting back collectively can make massive differences. And we've seen that. We've seen that with director ID. We've seen that with legislation that we've had, stopped from passing. We've seen that, with the voice referendum. I mean, it goes on and on and on. When people work together collectively towards a common goal, we can achieve anything. There's a hell of a lot more of us than there are of them. That's what people need to understand. And again, I often give an example in our live events. If you've ever been out camping and you've been bitten on the toe by a bull ant, you'll quickly try and squash that bull ant and stamp it out. But if you've ever accidentally kicked the bull ant nest and there's 1,000 bull ants all running after you, you don't try and stamp them out. You just hightail and run and get out of there. And that's what will happen if we all rise up, against them. They'll run. Look what happened in Iceland. The people in Iceland just, rose up and said, enough of this international banking cartel. We don't want to be part of this Federal Reserve System anymore. We've had enough. So the government, okay, rightio, well, let's, round up all the bankers and kick them out. And those that don't leave, they threw them in jail. And Iceland, the Icelandic economy has absolutely thrived ever since they did that. So, I mean, there's example after example after example that you can look at, if people want to be inspired, but people just need to take action. That's really what it comes down to.
Yes, and what you choose to focus on will grow.
Yeah.
There's a great little cartoon online called The Tiny Dot, and it shows how it's a great cartoon. It's actually, I put the link to it in our Conscious Community Global Facebook group so people can go in there. There's a whole lot of great videos in there as well. And the Tiny Dot basically shows how, the enforcers are this tiny little dot, and then you've got all the population over here that are going, oh, must we comply? Oh, must we? And the enforcers go, oh, yes, you must. Yes, you must. Give us half your money in taxes. And yes, and throng of people comply mostly, right?
Yeah, no, we used to show that video at all of our live events back in the day. Yeah, and people used to go, oh yeah, but then just go back to their lives and keep complying.
Yes, so it's actually empowering people to take action. And what do you say to people who say, oh, well, it's only only me, what can I do as little old me? How can we collectively come together and make a bigger difference? What's the best way?
Well, because, I mean, again, you can just look out there in the world at any person, that's achieved any, measure of success, and that's whatever you call success, whatever it is to you. And you'll see that it's, you take, all right, people like Trump, you take people like Elon Musk, again, whether you love them or hate them, there's no denying that they're successful in their endeavors, what they wanted to achieve. Well, Trump's one person, Musk is one person, but they have a vision. They have a point of focus. There's something that's important to them. Again, whether you agree with it or disagree with it, it's not the point. But it's a demonstration to show that one man can achieve anything they want. I mean, look what Elon Musk has done. Started PayPal and started SpaceX and started Tesla and done all these things. And again, whether you think they're good or bad or you like him or you hate him, that shows you what one man can do. So, we see all these causes. We see all these foundations where one person, who was affected by cancer or their partner was affected by cancer, and they'll start a cancer foundation. They'll raise all these money and all these funds and do it. So anyone can achieve anything if they set their mind to it. So, at the Know Your Rights group, we're a little bit different. We're sort of spread out and we cover a whole lot of different topics just to try and get people involved in something. But what we then turn around and say to people is, right, if you're focused on rates or you're focused on fines or you're focused on the bank fraud or whatever it is, and you're passionate about that particular area, then you go out and run with that. Start a Facebook group, start a monthly meeting group, whatever, just talk about it at every opportunity. Share stories, share media clips, share videos, share anything that's in alignment with what your purpose is and what you want to achieve. And that's how we gather more people behind us. That's what leaders are. They're not magical, mystical people. They're just people that have a stronger focus and a stronger passion than most other people. And they go after what they want, and other people go, oh, this person's a leader leader in this field, and I'm going to follow them. Okay, great. And we need that too. We need, chiefs and Indians. We need leaders and followers. But even the followers can still be leaders on a smaller scale, in their own little community, with their own group of, people that they interact with their own families, in their own workplace, online. And this is the beauty with the internet and the advent of social media. Yes, it can be a waste of time and sit there scrolling through rubbish on Facebook for hours on it, but it can also be a really powerful tool. It's like anything. Guns don't kill people. Idiots with guns kill people. So AI is not going to destroy the world. Idiots who use AI for nefarious purposes might. But other people can harness AI and can harness social media and use that for really, really positive outcomes. I mean, that's what we do. That's what we do with the Know Your Rights group. We do videos, we do radio shows, we do webinars, we do live events. We do it all, and we use all those platforms to help us reach as many people as possible. And if every person just went and told 5 other people about whatever interest topic was of interest to them and got them involved, that's how you create a movement.
The ripple effect of change. One of the favorite quotes of mine is a Margaret Mead quote that says, "A small group of thoughtful people can change the world. In fact, it's the only thing that ever has."
That's
a
correct.
Group of thoughtful people. And there's something we can all do. We can all share this video. We can share something on socials. We can get the word out there. As you say, share with 5 other people, even just share with one other person who shares with one other person. Like, the ripple effect of change starts with you. And it is really getting over this apathy that we have in Australia. It's all about rise to the middle in Australia, isn't it? And it's, people are scared to speak up and step up. They're worried, and we know people have been killed for speaking their truth. We've seen it with Martin Luther King, JFK, so many others, right, have been killed. Yes, but are you going to live in fear? You're going to live a lifetime in fear, or are you going to live at least one day standing, on your knees, as they say? Like, how are you going to choose to live your life? And how important is it for people to build that resilience and build that courage to be able to step up, speak up, and to make a change and do things?
I think, and again, I say this to people all the time, one of the fundamental problems that we have here in Australia is that we're actually way too comfortable. Okay, we don't have bombs going off out the backyard. Okay, we don't have people standing on the streets with AK-47s. Most people have a fridge full of beer. They've got a big screen TV to come home and watch the footy. And they bitch and moan about taxes and rates and fines. But at the end of the day, most people in Australia are pretty comfortable. And, this sort of harks back to my, success coaching stuff, and I'm sure stuff that you've done as well. And you don't learn, you don't grow, and you don't change in life when you're comfortable. You change when you go to put your jeans on and the button doesn't do up anymore and you're very uncomfortable and you go, oh, okay, maybe I better do something about that. Okay. You change when you go out to the car with a bag full of shopping and then there's a sheriff clamp on the car and you can't get home because you go, oh, yeah, I've got to do something about that. Okay. You change when you go to the petrol station, you go to pay for your fuel with your card and you find out that the ATO has garnished your bank account and you've got no money left. You go, oh, yeah, I've got to do something about it. But here's the thing. You don't have to leave it that late. You don't have to wait till the clamps on the car. You don't have to wait till the sheriff's knocking on the door. You don't have to wait till your bank account's being garnished. You can think a few steps ahead and say, okay, what's the likely scenario here? What's the likely possibility going to be if I don't do something about this topic or that topic or whatever it is? And then reframe that and go, okay, and what small steps could I take now to be proactive towards achieving the change that I want to achieve in that particular area or subject or topic? And then the decision becomes pretty clear. And again, as we say to people, no one has to go out there and do what we do. Videos and radio shows and seminars and webinars and blah, 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 blah. That's our lot in life. We chose that. That's all good. But people have to just do something and just do something on a regular basis. Even if you choose to post one meme a day, you're going to share one media article a week, you're going to listen to one, inspirational or Know Your Rights podcast a week. Just do something and do it consistently. Okay. As I say to people, no one wakes up one day, a complete alcoholic, drinks a whole bottle of scotch straight. They started by having a little sip and then a couple of more sips and a few more sips. And over time, that's what happens. So it's the same in the same way as these negative patterns are born. So too can you create these really positive patterns. And that's in anything, whether it's learning about your rights or health and fitness or improving your relationships or earning more money. It very rarely requires some massive monumental overhaul and change. Sometimes if you've let things get too far, that's required. But if you're just going along nicely and you just say, hey, I'm going to take stock of my life and see how I can improve in these areas and just start taking small actions on a daily or weekly basis to improve those things, you'll find that change just happens. That's the way it works.
Yeah, 100%. I actually took action on something that had upset me for a long time and felt helpless and hopeless to do anything about, and that was animal cruelty. Every time I saw animal cruelty for years, I felt really upset. I felt really angered by it. And then there was a turning point that happened. There was a big pain point that happened, and that was where I watched a documentary called Earthlings, which is all about how humans have treated animals over time, how we've used them for food, clothing, scientific research. A really hard to watch documentary. Literally, I was holding my throat and crying by the end of this documentary. But I thought, right, now it's time. I've got to do something for animals. What can I do for animals? And I thought, okay, I'll just put on a day, I'll put on an event, and we'll encourage everyone to just take some action for animals. And I actually it was a world's first Animal Action Day, all about awareness, appreciation, respect for animals, 2007. We've done 18 annual events, raised funds for different charities every year.
Nice.
And it's extraordinary, millions of dollars in media exposure for all these different charities. But it started with that one pain point. I mean, the signs are there. Like, there'll be people tuning in right now that are angry and frustrated and don't know what to do. And, and the fact that you're feeling this frustration is fantastic, because maybe now you'll do something about it.
Take action. Yeah,
take action. Maybe you'll join the Know Your Rights group and come to a seminar that's coming up. You do have one on the Gold Coast coming up. What's the details of that one? Can you share a bit about that?
Yeah, so that is this is going to be our final live event. We've just found that with the cost of interstate travel and venues and accommodation and flights and everything just going through the roof, that we've started a webinar series this year, and it's been really, really popular. So this is going to be the last of our live events for the foreseeable future. But it's sort of a 2.5 day event. So on the Friday night, we have a completely free introductory seminar. Anyone's welcome to attend. You do have to book a spot, though, because there are limited seats, but it is free. And we cover just an introduction onto things like fines, the Commonwealth Constitution, the Constitution Commission reports, why they're so important. Most people never even heard of them, wouldn't have a clue what they were. And also an introduction to taxation and the ATO. And that runs from, I think it's from 5:30 to 9. So it's just a good introduction. So if anyone's brand new beginner, they want to come and learn that, they can just jump online and secure a seat to that. Pardon me. Then on the Saturday, we have our intermediate events. It's a full day event, runs from 9 till 5:30, 6 o'clock. And we cover more on the Constitution, more detail on fines, actual court cases that you can use, and actual arguments that you can raise in court. We explain what unidroit is, the difference between civil and criminal jurisdictions in court. We do talk all about FOIs, freedom of information requests, how you can actually write to the government to get the information, to get them to give you the information that you can then turn around and use back against them. So some really, really powerful stuff there. Exactly what to say and not to say and do the minute the blue and red lights come on behind you, how to interact with police, all that stuff's covered. And then on the Sunday, we have our advanced mastermind workshop, and we go through a notice of discovery process, how to create good, strong court paperwork to make your cases very simple to win in court. We go through the straw man concept, what that is, why you are not a person, why you have a person, how you can administrate that person and separate yourself from that person. We talk about our true government, why this whole King of Australia thing just simply doesn't exist. There is no such lawful title, and what the ramifications are for all court cases as a result of that. We talk about financial freedom, how to use things like private foundations and trust structures, self-managed super funds to protect your finances. And then we finish off with a little presentation on what the future holds and how we, the people, absolutely can shape what the future is going to be for our kids and our kids' kids. So we do urge people to view it as a full weekend event, the Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. We know not everybody can always that's not always possible, but there's options there. You can come just the Friday, just the Saturday, just the Sunday, combination, whatever you like. But yes, that's going to be in Mermaid Waters on the 4th, 5th and 6th of July. So yeah, if anyone's interested, just jump on our website, knowyourrightsgroup.com.au, just click on the seminars tab and you'll find all the details under there.
Beautiful. That sounds absolutely amazing. I'm going to be there, and I know I've got some friends coming, so really looking forward to that. And it just so happens to be the same weekend when the Gold Coast Marathon is on too, and they're going to have 30,000 participants on the Sunday from all over the place coming to the Gold Coast that same weekend. So that could explain why prices have gone through the roof for that particular weekend as well.
Yeah, it could be, yeah.
About 60,000 people coming to the Gold Coast, and hopefully some of them will come along to your seminar.
Yeah.
That could be an added bonus in that way. And yeah, we'll pop that link in there. Now we have here a comment from Rhonda Palmer. I'm worried about the WHO, World Health Organization, the WHO's interference into our lives and the vote in July. What do you say to Rhonda there?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, this is a story that we've been following. We're following it when the proposal was put in. We covered it on the on our video updates when it was all approved. And it is very concerning. And there are already petitions that we've covered on our videos that people can fill out. And we're going to send off to the members of parliament to say to them, no, we do not want anything to do with the WHO. We want to remove ourselves from the WHO, just as the US did, just as Argentina did. But again, it comes down to people power. People need to get on to those petitions, fill them out, share them around, get other people to sign them. We've also got some court cases that are underway at the moment. Again, we've covered these on some of our recent radio shows. People like Dr. Beverly Peers, who's running a case in the High Court in relation to the forced jabs, and that is the ruling that they're hoping to get from that case is going to have a direct bearing on what Australia can and can't do in relation to directives from the WHO. But yeah, absolutely, it is concerning, and again, it's another reason why we all need to stand up now and push back against this now, support those court cases now before the next pandemic is released or whatever it is that they're going to do, because then it's going to be too little too late. So people need to get onto those now.
Yes, thank you for that. Thanks, Mike, and thanks, Rhonda, for that. Interesting. Rhonda says she's got a doctor's appointment and they're still pushing the jab, even though all the documents against it. Yes, and a big rollout in mainstream media saying that the next deadly virus is coming out.
I've been doing videos for the last 3 weeks. And every week there's some new variant, some new deadly strain, and it's all this and it's all that, and they are pushing like crazy. And it just, again, once people start to see how they work, it all becomes pretty obvious, because on one hand, the article goes, oh, there's this brand new strain and it's really, really dangerous and it's really, really infectious and da-da-da-da-da. And then 2 paragraphs later, they go, so go and get the vaccine and it's going to protect you. But hang on a minute, this strain only just got released 2 weeks ago. So how have you got a vaccine already that's going to actually target that? Something doesn't add up. So again, people just need to think a little bit about what, and when you understand how the media tries to spin things and everything, you understand the way they work, and you just don't fall for it anymore. You just go, oh, yeah, I can see what they're doing there. And I said, I read it out on my weekly videos now, and it just becomes a joke. We put memes up, the book of the overflowing book of the Guinness Book of COVID variants, and it's just like, it just becomes ridiculous.
Yes. And I think if you trust your gut as well, like I knew the minute that the whole COVID thing rolled out in March 2020, I knew in my gut, I thought something is just off about this. I wasn't quite sure, couldn't quite put my finger on it. But of course, you want to know what's going on in the world, follow the money trail. Follow the money trail. It says in the Thrive documentaries. If you haven't seen those, highly recommend you watch the Thrive documentaries as well. So yes, it's just a matter of, just because they're pushing it doesn't mean you have to take it. Okay, just because everyone's falling off a cliff doesn't mean you have to go off the cliff as well.
Correct.
So, and thankfully, lots of people haven't gone off the cliff. And hey, the fact you're still here, it's not too late. You can change your future even if you can't change the past, right?
Correct. And the other thing is that once you see the cliff and you make a choice not to go over it, you can help stop other people from going over it too. You're not going to save everyone, because that's their lot in life. But you can actually, you can still make an effort and say, hey, before you do that, have you read this? Have you considered this? Have you thought about that? Have you researched that? At least just go and do that first. And then they might reach and go, oh, wow, okay, I didn't realize that. Have you got any other info? Bang. Oh, well, have a look at this. Have a look at this. Otherwise, I'm going to go, nah, screw you. That doesn't make any sense. I'm going to go and do it. Okay, great. At least then you know you tried. Yes, and they've at least made an informed, or what they consider to be an informed decision. And that's fine. And that's, we all make decisions in life.
Yes. And I must say a beautiful thing that has come out of the last 5 years is that there's so many sort of common law groups and communities that have started up now where, because a lot of people felt very alone with, those who were awake before all this happened. A lot of people felt really alone in that. And now I think there's amazing communities of people that have come together, and you might have lost some friends, but you've gained other friends, that are more conscious.
That's probably the one piece of feedback that I get the most. I mean, I bump into people all the time at the post office, the bank, at the airports, cafes, whatever, and they go, "Oh, you're the guy, the know your rights guy," and we start chatting, and they go, "Oh, I found you during COVID." And, it's always the same thing. Thank God for those videos, because you made me realize I wasn't the only one thinking and feeling this way. And of course, because we, our videos were getting, viewed, 80, 90, 100,000 times, and people could see that and go, oh my God, I'm not the only one watching this. I'm not the only one thinking like this. I'm not the only one feeling this way. There are lots and lots of other people the same. And that one point alone seemed to give people a lot of hope and a lot of strength and a lot of courage and a lot of confidence, because of course, as you mentioned from the outset, the powers that be work under this whole divide and conquer strategy. And we were trying to bring people together and letting them know that there are people all around the country that are not falling for this, that are standing their ground, and if they can do it, then so can you. And and again, I get so many people come to me and say, "Oh, I stood my ground. I didn't get the jab. I lost my job, but then I found this other job which ended up being better." And da 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 da. And and so if we've been able to play a small role in that, then that's been really great.
Amazing. Yeah. And, hats off to everyone who did stand their ground, and hats off also to everyone who actually speaks up about it as well, because a lot of people are actually, are conscious, etc., and, have woken up, but they're not all speaking up about it. And it's interesting, not many people I know now aren't awake. Like, it's interesting how many actually are, but you may not know they are because they haven't spoken up. So I'm encouraging you to speak up and step up a little bit more, right? Just to share a little bit more and do it. Kindness. I think kindness is really important, because everyone is where they're at. They're making the choices. They are.
No judgment or anything like that. People made the decisions that they made for the reasons they made them at the time, and you weren't in their shoes. You don't know what you would or wouldn't have done at the same thing. So it's just about saying, okay, well, that's where you are now. So how can we help you get to from where you are now to where you ultimately want to be? That's really what it's all about. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Now we've got lots of comments and questions coming in, and thank you for everyone who's joined us. I can see on Instagram we've got Khan Wiley here, Don Martin, Ageless Body Formula. Good to see you, Linda Morrison, fellow Melbourne person as well, that went through all of that. I feel for everyone in Melbourne. I really feel for what you went through there. That was insane. 270 something days of lockdown for you guys.
It was crazy times.
Crazy. SLBC, Meredith Showers with the George Genus. Good to see you. Now, Karen Walker on YouTube says, our accountant states that the ATO has new regulations called RAM, which stands for registering your accountant through the ATO, to have authority to have security and authority. And apparently this has to be done through MyGov ID. Now, I don't think anything to be done in any which way, and a lot of people have resisted the MyGov ID. But what do you say to Karen on that one?
Correct. They cannot use an accountant unless the accountant goes through the MyGov ID. I covered this actually just as recently as last night's video. And again, we covered a very, very important petition that we need to push back, and we need to stop this digital ID right now, because this is not something that's happening in the future. This is happening right now. The ATO have already brought this in, and that's just one element. Businesses cannot do any taxation without going through a MyGov ID. People cannot use accountants to access their taxation records without going through a MyGov ID. And it's happening right now, and that's only going to expand. Soon you won't be able to open up a bank account if you don't have your MyGov ID to authorize who you are. Eventually it could even turn to things like shopping, buying fuel. This is going to be the single most infiltrating thing if they can pass it, and we need to stop it now. Again, covered a petition on last night's video. If anyone missed it, they can go onto our YouTube page or our BitChute page or onto our Facebook page. They can find the video. They can find a link to the petition. And yeah, we need to fight back now. Otherwise, they're just going to keep barreling on with this digital ID, 100%.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for that. And thank you, Karen. Yes, get informed again. And of course, they're threatening and pushing and whatever, whenever they say you have to do something, I always question it, right? Always question. You don't have to do anything. And of course, this is not legal advice. Do your own research on this, okay?
Oh, yeah.
Seek your own professional advice on all of this. We're just giving our opinion here.
Yeah.
Now, Andrew Visser here on Facebook says, local council hide behind Section 106 of the Constitution to get away with rates.
Yeah, look, the fundamental thing that they rely on is the Local Government Act, the local government in each state. That's how they get their purported authority or power. But the problem is that, again, once people come to our webinars or live events, they understand what rates are. Rates are actually the rent due and payable to the Crown. Because what people don't understand, people think, oh, well, I've bought my house, I've paid off my mortgage, I own my property now. And you don't. You never actually own your property. You're only listed as a tenant in common. And as a tenant in common, you're required to pay rates to the Crown. But the problem is that the local councils, are not authorised representatives of the Crown. So they're not actually authorised to accept those payments on behalf of the Crown. And that's the key, that's the key argument. It's a similar thing with the ATO. You go and look at Section 81 of the Commonwealth Constitution, and it refers, pardon me, it refers to the fund, the Consolidated Revenue Fund, that all revenue that is collected by all official government bodies is to be paid into that Consolidated Revenue Fund. But of course, when you pay the ATO, your tax, if you do a tax return and they say, oh, you owe us $5,000 or whatever, you don't actually pay it to the Consolidated Revenue Fund. So who are you paying and what are you paying for? So these are some of the nuances that we get into with our events and everything. But it's just some stuff for people to start researching, start looking into, and you sort of go, oh, wow, so I've been paying my taxes to the wrong people all this time. What the hell? I've been paying, rates to local councils that aren't actually authorised to collect it on behalf of the Crown. Well, what are they doing with this money? Who are they? And then you realise it's all just a big, corporate scam. They operate under an ABN, and all they're doing is paying their own big fat wages. That's what it's, that's what it's not actually going there to benefit the community, which is what rates are supposed to be there for.
Yes, and when we look at how they spend our money anyway, for example, $1.2 billion of government money into the fire ant eradication program that's killing half our animals and killing water, killing our organic farming, and look into that one. There's a great Facebook group, Stop the Toxic Fire Ant Program. Highly recommend you check that out and do your research. And they're mandating now and threatening to fine people if they don't put this poison all over their land.
And we've had a lot of people email our radio shows. We've done a number of discussions on the fire ant situation. So if anyone's interested in finding out more, jump onto our podcast, listen to the relevant podcasts, and keep standing your ground 100%.
Yes, which lots of people are. So that's great. Jeff Smith, or Smith Jeff, says, hi, team. Hi, how are you going there? Good to see you. Monique Nungo, can we get away with local councils when we want to put a tiny house on your land?
Not sure what you mean, get away with local councils. I'm assuming she's saying, can we put it on there without local council approval? Is what I'm guessing at. And again, there are ways around it. And again, we've covered this on some recent radio shows. There's ways to put them up on blocks or stilts so that they are not a permanent fixture, and there are some creative ways that you can get around things like that. But the thing is, you got to read the legislation. That's the key, and that's why our whole thing is know your rights. Those who don't know their rights have none. You've got to know what your rights are, and the first step to knowing your rights is just to simply read the legislation. No, it's not necessarily fun or exciting or enjoyable, but it is important. If you want to bake a cake, you've got to read the recipe. you can try and wing it, but it may or may not work out. And so it's the same thing. So just take the time, you don't need to read the whole, local government act or whatever. You just need to read the relevant sections. And again, we have things, we do presentations on OSLI and how to navigate legislation, how to find the specific, piece of legislation that you need. But you just need to read those sections of legislation. Say, okay, this is what we're dealing with. This is what it says. And what most people don't realize is that all these people in charge, all the, the powers that be, the people sitting at the top, they are also bound by this same legislation themselves. It's not, people think, oh, it's one law for them and one law for everyone else. And, we joke about that, but it's not actually correct. It's the same laws for everybody. But what they do is they hide these remedies in, the back doors and the bottoms and whatever of these sections of the legislation. So you've got to read the legislation to see what it actually says and to see what it doesn't say. As I mentioned to the viewers before, I was shocked when I opened the Road Rules Victoria. This is the road rules, what we all supposedly sign up to, and the contents of this document are to be adopted as law in Victoria. Well, what the hell does that mean? To be adopted means that they are not, and as law means, it's just crazy. It tells you that it's not. So you've got to read the legislation. And then once you see what it does and doesn't say, you can say, all right, now I'm going to get a little bit creative and I'm going to find a way around that. And as I said, the remedy's always there. You just got to know where to look and what to look for.
Yes, beautiful. And as far as I know, if it's a removable home, you don't pay council for that. I did do a renovation at my house many years ago, and we paid 10 grand at the time to get council approval. So, and I kind of think, gosh, the thing is, if you got to sell your house and then you don't have that council approval, what happens then? However, I'm sure, I don't know what I know now, that, back then I just went ahead with whatever, whatever I was advised by, town planners and, architects and whoever was dealing with it at the time, the engineers, etc. But really, when you look at how much the councils charge, and Gold Coast is one of the worst for this, we've got some of the highest paid councillors and rates going to ridiculous things here.
There's a video of what's his name? The mayor of Gold Coast driving around in his in his latest Ferrari V12 thing or something. So he's clearly not short of $1 that he's getting off the taxpayers, is he?
No, and he's got 2 bodyguards that taxpayers pay for as well. So that's interesting. Yeah. Why would he
and if you're doing the right thing by your constituents, why would you need that? You got that many people, trying to run up and give you a hug and you can't handle it all, or is it maybe something else?
Yes, exactly. I'd say he'd had quite a few death threats, I would say. Now, Smith Jeff says, can't wait. I presume that's for the Gold Coast event. I'm sure it's going to be amazing. Yep. Arthur Ledwidge is with us on YouTube. Long time.
I do recall Arthur's name. Hey, Arthur, big shout out.
Sue says it depends on the size of home and council. Do your own research there. Thank you, Sue. Yes. Okay, here we go. Anthony Malone on Facebook. Can you legally get a driver's license if banned in another state? I think that's banned.
So it depends which state. So, for example, the New South Wales and the Queensland systems are very closely linked, but other states, for example, say Victoria and West Australia, are not. So, yes, if you have your license suspended in Victoria, you can go, for example, to WA and you can get a license there. But again, this is really important for your viewers to understand, because this seems to cause a lot of confusion for Aussie motorists. So people go, oh, my license is suspended, I can't drive. No, that's not technically correct. What has happened is that your right to drive in that particular state has been suspended. So if, for example, you're in Queensland and your license was suspended, it only means that you're suspended from driving in the state of Queensland. Okay, if you hopped on a plane and landed in Victoria, you could completely drive on your Queensland license, no problem at all, because you see, the states have no authority over other states. Okay, so a state can't ban your right to drive in another state. Okay, but they will suspend your right to drive in that state. So yes, as I said in the example before, you could have your license suspended or your right to drive in the state of Victoria suspended, go to WA, okay, and get a WA license. But the problem with that is that if you went and got that WA license and returned to Victoria and drove during the period of your suspension, okay, it's not going to actually help you, because okay, they are going to see that, well, your right to drive in Victoria is suspended. It's not your actual license in Victoria that's suspended. Okay, so just do be aware of that distinction, because people do get caught up on that sometimes.
Yes, that's a great one. Good question there, Anthony. Thank you. Now we've got Wendy McMenamin who has an issue here. She says, can anyone help me? I've bought the set of booklets. My son has been under Mental Health Act and unable to work, got a massive spur debt. So far, they took out over $8,000 because of auto debit until his bank account was empty, and they're still chasing another $1,000.
Yes, you need to immediately get onto the work and development program. Okay, you just need a letter from your doctor to say that there's mental health issues. You go straight to Spur and make an application under the work and development program. If only you'd come to us with that question before they took out the $8,000, because you just do that work and development program, and basically what they do, they just put you through a series of you'll do courses, or you'll do some community service, or you'll do something like that, and you just work that debt off rather than actually taking the money. And there's a similar program in all states. So yeah, just keep an eye out for that.
Thank you, Wendy. Yeah, I hope you get that sorted. Good question. Simon Smith on Facebook. Thoughts on promissory notes to pay utilities and rates accounts, Mike?
Again, same as bills of exchange. The promissory notes really come under the bills of exchange. Some people have had success, other people haven't. What tends to happen is they'll, especially if you're just talking about utilities, is they'll accept the payment and then they'll just decline to do business with you any further. So if you pay Southeast Water or Telstra or something with a promissory note, they go, radio, we'll take your promissory note and we're going to cancel your account. We're not going to work with you anymore. So if you want to keep jumping from company to company to company every month, but yeah, it's not really a long-term solution.
Yes, thank you for that. Bruce Pierce says, Rhonda Palmer, yes, they do not care. It's just another stream of revenue, and they are psychopaths or have psychopathic traits. Yes, we've seen that. You are just a number and just a face that has money attached to you. They will make it temporarily uncomfortable for you to say no, but when you do, they will back off. Just know that they are a business, and they will always, always ask until it is illegal to do so or publicly shunned for them to do so. They are there to make. They don't give a shit about you.
Yep,
yes.
Very true.
Thank you for that, Bruce. Appreciate that. Wendy has another question here. Wendy McMenamin. If we own our house outright, but the land titles have gone electronic, how can we keep the ownership of our land? Does it help if we put your property in a trust?
So again, we get these sort of questions all the time. So again, I want to make it clear: you don't own your land. You never own your land. It's not yours. It belongs to the Crown, and you are a tenant in common with the Crown. So that is number one. So that means that the Crown can always take the land back for certain reasons. Now, it doesn't mean they're just going to flick a switch one day and say, yes, we're going to take everyone's land. That's not the way it's going to work. But there are things like, compulsory acquisition. When an airport wants to expand its footprint, if your house is in that, we saw that from the movie, The Castle. Yes, they can compulsorily acquire that land, but they can only do so on just terms. So they have to pay you a fair and reasonable amount for that. So, that's something to be aware of, that they can always do that. Now, again, whether this is good news or bad news, depending on how you choose to look at it. Just to let everyone know, the government is not going to just come and take everybody's land. Yes, we've heard of you will own nothing and you'll be happy. So that's the good news. The bad news is what they're actually going to do is they're going to tax you out of your ability to keep hold of that land. They're just going to keep raising taxes until you can no longer afford to hold on to that land. And then they're going to swoop in and say, well, look, we'll buy it off you and then you can just rent it back off us and we're going to come and save you because they're the wonderful current government that cares about you. So that's the process that they're going to use. It's the process that they're already using. Again, just need to look at what they're doing here with in Victoria with the good old Dan tax. What they're trying to do with the anything over $3 million in unrealized gains. That is just a tax on unrealized gains. If you own a property worth more than $3 million, which a lot of people do, they're facing this. It is a huge issue, but that's what what they're going to do. So no, a trust or anything like that is not going to help you. A trust is only useful as a protection mechanism if one person is likely to be sued for some reason or another. So if you work in an industry where you're likely to get sued, as a doctor through malpractice or something like that, where a trust is handy is, husband and wife, they purchase the family home in a trust. In a discretionary trust or family trust, as some people know, they'll usually put the wife, just as I'm just saying as a generalization, because they're usually less likely to get sued. They'll put the wife on as the trustee, and then they'll have the husband and then the two kids as the beneficiaries. And that way, if the husband in his medical practice, for example, was to ever be sued for malpractice, they can't attack the family home. That's the only place where trusts become a useful protection tool.
What about foundations, Mike? Do you know much about foundations?
So private foundations are, again, for simplistic terms, so a trust is there for asset protection, and a private foundation is there for income, and I do say that in inverted commas for a reason, because there's no such thing, they can't define it, but for income protection. So what you can use a private foundation for is if you have payments coming in for some reason, if you have funds coming in, rather than receiving those funds personally, you can set up a private foundation, and the private foundation, which can operate as a tax-exempt entity, can receive those funds, therefore eliminating any personal income tax obligations that you might have. But again, I want to make it crystal clear, you cannot put any assets into a private foundation because they operate in the private, and therefore they cannot interact with the public entities such as the land titles offices and things like that. So again, assets are protected by trusts, and income or funds coming in can be protected by private foundations.
Excellent. Thank you so much. All right. We've got Chris Betts here on Facebook. In the last few weeks, I've been contacted by my bank, who have had accounts with over 30 years. I've had accounts with for over 30 years. Is it lawful asking me to verify my details? Are we required to verify our ID by disclosing driver's license, passport, Medicare details? They state it's for the anti-money laundering laws. I've chosen, if required, to go to the local branch to verify.
Yes, so that's what we urge people to do, is just go into your local branch. So absolutely, it's lawful. In fact, not only is it lawful, it's necessary, and they can get into trouble. This is one of the things that came out of that Royal Commission into banking. And if you don't provide that information, they will just close your account. So do be aware of that. But yes, we don't recommend you do the verification online or over the phone. We do recommend that you go in and do the verification. It's usually just a 5 or 10 minute process. You go in, you sit down with them, you show them your license, you show them your passport, you say, yes, I'm still, who I said I am. They say, no worries. And depending on which bank you're with, they'll do it anywhere from every 3 months to every, 3 years. So, yeah.
Yes. Thank you for that, Chris. Great question there. Newbie in one, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. Yes, I love that.
Oh,
absolutely. Yes, one step, one small step. Absolutely. Corinda Marley is asking, what is it like to have your own personal experience with this? Yeah, what has your experience been like, Mike, with all of this?
Well, it's been interesting. That's one word for it. Yeah, I mean, look, where do you go? We'd be here all night if I went through everything. But I mean, I remember when I first started working with the Aussie speeding fines guys. And, because this was just like a small group of people that had this amazing information. And I was like, you need to, get this out to the masses. They didn't even know what a website was. So I helped them set up a website, and then we helped them, write the book, which is the Aussie Speeding Fines book, how it's morphed into. And I said, look, you need to do some promotion. And they all went, oh, we don't want to. So I was, being young and dumb and stupid back then, 20 years ago or something, I sort of put my hand up and, did some interviews on a current affair. And, after doing that, I used to just get stopped by the police all the time. Just get randomly pulled over, and we saw your video on a current affair, and you're a danger to society, telling people all this information and all this kind of rubbish. And I went, yeah, right, not sure that I really need that headache anymore. So left for a few years, and then came back and did a few more things, and then obviously with the Know Your Rights group, painted an even bigger target on my back, and so there's been various agencies coming after me for different things, and I mean, I've spent 4.5 years in the courts personally, all the way up to the High Court, finding the banks on mortgages and exposing the truth about the bank fraud. So it's been interesting. That's
And
probably
you're also a success coach. Now, how important
Yes.
has the personal development work been for you to be able to deal with all this craziness?
Absolutely, because as you know, with the things that you do, it's you don't set a goal and achieve it, and that's the end result. It's who you become in the attainment of that goal. It's how you change as a person, how you learn, and how you grow. And so that's really what it's been for me. It was never the end result of beating a fine or exposing a certain amount of information or whatever. That was always a part of it, obviously. But it was learning and growing myself. To become that sort of person. And, a lot of people go, well, how on earth did you spend 4.5 years, in and out of the courts? I mean, I was in and out of the courts like every month. And as I say to people, I was just in the fortunate or unfortunate situation, depending on how you want to look at it. I didn't have a job, I didn't have an income, but I was living in a factory, in a little room above a mate's factory for 12, 18 months. So I didn't have any overheads or commitments. So I just buried my head in books and legal stuff and learned and studied and and then because I have the ability to speak. I was able to put together affidavits and submissions, and I was able to stand there in front of the courts and allocute things and run arguments. And some people sort of get up in court and they just sort of freeze, whereas that wasn't my thing. I was able to get up there and stand and talk, and then other people come and found me and asked me to help them with their various cases. And so so I did all that, and that was just a journey of becoming. I certainly never thought 30 years ago that I would be standing there in the Supreme Court, Court of Appeal or the High Court, looking up to the benches up here with these people sitting there and running cases and arguments. But there you have it. So yeah.
Amazing. Yes, it is who you become in the journey for sure. And, and being prepared to, put up with all the highs and lows of the whole journey, because you're going to go through this roller coaster ride through all of it.
Absolutely. But it's the thing that's hard to explain to people. And if there's any of the viewers that are members of ours and have done any of this stuff, they'll know exactly what I'm talking about. And that is the confidence that it gives you. When the blue and red lights come on, most people go into panic mode. Oh God, and they start freaking out. I'm like, all right, game on, and I have fun. Most people when they go to court, they panic and oh my God, I don't know what to say, I don't know what to do, and they're panicking. And I'm just like, all right, we're going to go for a big public game of chess. We're going to have some fun here. And what's actually really funny is that the magistrates actually love it, because they're so used to the same old boring, dull and dreary cases and people going, oh, I didn't do it when it was obvious that they did and all this sort of stuff. And you start bringing in some exciting arguments, things they haven't heard before, throwing bits of legislation, throwing the prosecutor off guard, and they sort of have a little laugh that they didn't know how to respond to that. And the magistrates have a bit of banter with you. I'm often standing there laughing and joking with magistrates, and people are like, how do you do that? It was like scary as hell for me. Well, I didn't do it overnight. It takes time, but you can absolutely get to that point. And this stems from my martial arts background. I was an instructor in 3 different styles of martial arts. I started when I was 16, I think. And I remember, as a little white belt just starting out, scrawny little, weedy little dude. And I was just so scared of getting punched, getting hit. And eventually, after you do a number of years of martial arts, well, you get hit a few times. And once it happens that 10th, 15th, 20th time, it just doesn't have any hold over you anymore. It's not nice, it's not pleasant, no one likes to cop a hit, but it's just the fear of being hit is actually far worse than being hit. And that's the thing, it's the fear of going to court, it's the fear of speaking to the police that's far worse than it actually is. I jump out of the car when the cops go, how you going, mate? What's going on? How's your day been? And they're like, and it throws them off guard because they're used to, and, so all of a sudden it's just like, well, you're a bloke, they're a bloke, or you're a chick, they're a chick, whatever it is, and just 2 people. That's what it comes down to. The magistrates are sitting there and they're just people too. They they've got worries and problems and issues and taxes and rates and everything that we deal with as well. They're no different. They just happen to have a little bit of knowledge or a little bit of experience in a particular area. So when you do some study and research and you can sort of match them at least at some level, it's like going to a mechanic. If you know nothing about cars, I wouldn't recommend you take your car to a mechanic. Take someone with you who has a basic fundamental knowledge of mechanics to go to the mechanic that can relate to the mechanic and say, listen, there's a rattle from the engine. We've checked the starter. We've checked the alternator. It doesn't seem to be coming from there. Then they go, oh, okay, he knows what he's talking about. Let's check some other things. And, and that's just the way to do it. But at the end of the day, once you go down this path and you really do the study and you try a few things out, and look, absolutely, you'll cop a few hits, you'll fail a few times. I'm the first to put my hand up and say, I've failed more times than most people. But, the boxer that wins the match isn't the bloke that never gets hit. He's the bloke that gets up one more time after being hit than the other guy. That's what it comes down to. So if you can, do this a few times and practice a few times, cop a few hits, cop a few fails, pay a few bills or fines or whatever, but that knowledge, that experience that you get will give you confidence that you just have no fear anymore. And you live your life on your terms. I mean, you talked before about the lockdowns in Melbourne, and they made just absolutely zero difference to us whatsoever. Now, I didn't deliberately go out flaunting the law, but if I needed to go to Officeworks and it was 20 Ks away, I went to Officeworks 20 Ks away. If I wanted to go and visit, a friend or family member who was 30 Ks away or outside the Ring of Steel, I went and visited that family member. We still ran our radio shows every, Tuesday night from 8 till 10 p.m. And, the other speakers, came down to the studio and we would sit there and we'd, run our show and we'd do our debrief for an hour afterwards and we'd have a, drink or two and everyone would drive home at midnight or whatever. And we did it every week without any issue because we just didn't buy into the rubbish. So that's what going down this path does. It just gives you the confidence to not be scared. Just go, you know what? I'm not burning down orphanages here. I'm not killing people. I'm not raping people. I'm not actually doing any harm to anyone. I'm just living my life. So leave me alone and let me live my life. That's what it comes down to.
Yes, I love that. And absolutely, we're dealing with other human beings in this experience of life. I do believe we're spiritual beings having a human experience. In fact, the minute we die, our body becomes lighter. So we know our spirits, our souls go somewhere. Something happens with our, with our humanness here. However, so many people get way too serious about life and about everything going on in life. And if you do look at it like a game, and how are you playing your game in this life, with the bigger game, how are you doing life on a day-by-day basis? That's what's really important. How are you living an empowered life no matter what is going on in the world, because we're going to be thrown with curveballs no matter what, right? And this is where so many entrepreneurs I see, most of them have been ripped off massively over time because they've taken more chances. They've fallen so much, like you say.
I mean, most successful people have either been bankrupt or been close to bank, really successful people, because that's how you be, that's how you get, success is usually the result of experience, and experience is usually the result of past failure. You can't get that experience if you don't have a few failures and a few stumbles along the way. The trick is, don't let it get to you. Just accept, well, that's part of life. It's not a failure if you don't learn something from it. As long as you've learned something, then it's a success. It's a learning experience. And when you reframe things like that and you understand that it's just part of the journey, and all successful people had a few, bumps and lumps along the way, you just go, okay, well, that's cool. No worries. It's all part of the journey, and off we go. You don't just go, oh, it's the end of the world. And it's, you're still alive. You're still above ground. You're still breathing, and off you go again.
Yes.
That's what it comes down to.
Yeah. You control how you respond to whatever goes on in life.
Correct.
Michelle Schaefer on YouTube says, sometimes when you forget the love of money and just do the right thing, the money or happiness just follows.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And look, we all need to pay our bills. We've all got, roof over our head. We've got a cover and food on the table. But, once those basics are covered, or even while you're covering those basics, it's all about helping people. I mean, we do, as I said, completely free radio shows every second week. We do completely free video updates. We've got completely free information on our website. We do a completely free, event on the Friday night. So we give plenty of stuff for free just to help people. And then we say, if you like that, if that was helpful for you, if you learned something from that and you want to learn more, well, great. We've got some other options, some paid options for you with some books and CDs and courses and blah, blah, blah as well. But you do it because you genuinely genuinely want to help people, you genuinely care about people, and that's it. You can't do everything for free, but do some things, find a balance that works for you in your industry. But yeah, when you do what you love, the money will follow. I mean, that's an old Zig Ziglar quote or something, I think, from back in the day.
Love that. Love what you do, the money comes. I always love that one as well.
Yeah.
And, if people don't pay, they don't pay attention either. So I think, that's important as well, to actually, charge what you're worth, or, even doing great deals by people, that kind of thing, but not undervaluing yourself as well. I think that's really important to have
Yeah,
that.
I mean, a lot of people come and go, oh, you should do all your seminars for free. Okay, what do you do for free for the world? You've still got to eat and do everything as well. They're, oh, but I can't afford it. Well, then you're probably the most important person to come along, because probably, I'm guessing, one of the reasons that you can't afford it is that you've been screwed over by the system and paid too many fines, or paid too many taxes, or, been ripped off somehow, because you didn't know your rights. So you, above anybody else, needs to come, to these events so that you can learn that, to make sure it doesn't happen again. And that's where that reframing comes in. You got to think a few steps ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. Nick Prynne on Facebook says, have you got a link for the petitions?
Oh, you just do a Google search, just an online search, or DuckDuckGo for whatever petition you're looking for. But yeah, there's petitions for Australia to exit the WHO. There's petitions for Australia to create a cash and banking guarantee. That's Jason Bryce's petition. There's the petition to, not allow the Dan Andrews statue to be built. There's just do a search for whichever ones you're looking for, and they'll pop up.
Yes, great. Good question there, Nick. Absolutely. And that's something we can all do, is look for those petitions. That's awesome.
Yep.
And maybe put some links on your website. Know Your Rights group could be a good idea too. Maybe have a
link. So we've got them on. If people just go onto our YouTube channel or our BitChute channel and look at the videos and look in the description on the videos, whenever we've mentioned a petition, you'll find the link to that petition in those videos. So just, have a look there as well.
Beautiful. And that's knowyourrightsgroup.com.au. This is the specific link for the Gold Coast events coming up 4th to the 6th of July, in just a few weeks. The same weekend as the Gold Coast Marathon. There's going to be a lot of activity on the Gold Coast. knowyourrightsgroup.com.au/gold-coast-events. So go there and you'll find all that info. And there's lots of great stuff on your website. It is a very cool website, I must say. Now, Michelle Schaefer says it started in the 50s, SV40.
Oh, look, it's been going on a long, long time. See, they play the long game. Most people make plans a year ahead. These elite make plans, generations ahead, 100 years ahead. And that's why, because they've got a much bigger, much stronger plan. Again, I'm sure your viewers have heard that, if you don't have a plan for your life, someone else will. And that's exactly what happens. These elite have these long-term plans for our lives and what they want to do with us. And most people, sitting here, worrying about, who's playing the footy game tonight. And that's, and maybe what they're doing next week, and that's it. And that's the problem. People are only thinking, one or two steps ahead at most, whereas these, the powers that be, as I call them, are, they're thinking, 20, 40, 50, 100 steps ahead. And that's the difference. They've got everything mapped out like a big chess game.
Yes, absolutely. And actually, it was in the 1950s that the CIA termed the coin conspiracy theorist for anyone who knocked at the government back in the 50s as well. Yep. So isn't that interesting? And SV40, that is a virus. You can look that one up online. Simian vacuolating virus is what that stands for back in the 50s. EJ says on YouTube, do we need a complete government change? Well, would that make any difference? I wonder. What do you think?
If you got the right people into government, and again, go back to the history of government and what it used to be. The way government began was that people got together and someone said, hey, listen, I've got a particular interest or expertise in this field. So I will be a leader in relation to this particular area. And everyone said, yeah, well, look, that's great. And back when government started, it was all volunteer. People volunteered. They weren't paid these, ridiculous, wages with then these golden parachutes. If you've been in politics for 10 years where you get this ongoing payment for the rest of your life rubbish. I mean, where the hell did that come from? Absolutely we need a change of government. We need a change of the system of government and how government operates, and we need to get the right people back in there. That's what needs to happen. And it's a combination of all of those things. And look, there are people in there. I mean, obviously, people who've been following us know that we've worked, very closely with Rod Cullerton over the years. Daryl O'Brien, who's one of the presenters at our live events, he was on Rod Cullerton's actual team in the big house, and he was the one that raised all the constitutional arguments. And that's when Rod went into the Parliament and said, "Well, hang on a minute, why have you guys removed all references to the Queen from the High Court rules?" And they went, "Oh, whoops." So there are people in there, doing things like that. Pauline Hanson, again, whether you love her or hate her or what you think, she's going in and she's, she's rocking the boat. She's not doing the status quo. She's challenging things that need to be challenged. And look, there's lots of other good people too, but they're sort of individuals. This whole two-party preferred system, that's what needs to be, brought down. Again, if you want to look for things that are not in the Commonwealth Constitution, look for Prime Minister. Find where the Prime Minister is mentioned in the Commonwealth Constitution. Find where political parties are mentioned in the Constitution. See, they don't exist. They're a construct that's just been, that we've been baffled with. Everyone thinks, oh, yeah, this has gone on forever. No, this is all stuff that's been brought in more recently. And people have been deceived into thinking that we're supposed to have a Prime Minister and political parties. And it's not there. That's not the way it's supposed to work.
Yes, well said. Live frequency waves on YouTube. Good info. Topher Fields update on the police brutality case in Melbourne was a positive view also.
Oh yeah. Topher's done some great work. We've had Topher on our show, and he's one of the good guys.
Yes, and there's a little typo there. Topher Field, not Topper. Thank you for that. And also local government, third tier of government, go figure. So we talked about that early in the show. Yes. Now, Jeff Chapman here on Facebook. Anthony, no, you can't. Most states are digitally linked and cross-check everything, including police and SDRO. Tasmania was about the only state not linked, so we emailed and phone called to get that check done. I worked for the RYA RMS for many years, now retired.
Yeah, so as I said, it depends. Some states are, some states aren't. But I know certainly Queensland and New South Wales and Victoria are all quite closely linked.
Michelle Schaefer there on YouTube. It's just a cartel. It is like a cartel, isn't it?
Yes, it absolutely is. In fact, it actually comes under cartel provisions. That's local councils. They are actually operating under the cartel provisions of the Competition Consumer Act. Again, this is something that we cover in our live events and our webinars. So, yeah, for sure.
Live frequency waves on YouTube. Watched another uploaded content. Australia's 7th state. Sorry, can't think of the channel name, about how Brisbane City Council is larger than a few other states.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, these councils have just got these insane, unfettered powers, and they really need to be brought back into line first and foremost, because they are literally just getting away with blue murder, and it's just all money. And
then fluoride, of course, which calcifies the pituitary gland as well. Fluoride's bad.
Again, on that point, go and look what happened in Cairns. Enough people got together in Cairns and forced them to remove the fluoride from the water system up in Cairns. If they can do it there, you can do it anywhere else. You just got to get enough people to band together. As I said, whatever the topic is, whether it's fluoride or fire ants or rates or fines or banks or whatever your topic of interest is, just get together with like-minded people and take regular action. Do the research, keep learning, keep trying, do FOI requests, take cases to court, just take action. And you can bring about whatever change you desire if you get enough people involved.
Yes, 100%. And just look up your local common law groups, the My Place groups. There's a lot of amazing groups there you can join locally with your communities. Michelle Schaefer, they even make you scared of the sun. Yes, but embrace toxic EMF. Yeah, exactly, Michelle.
Yeah, they want you living in fear of everything. This will kill you, that'll kill you, this will give you cancer, that'll give you cancer. Don't go outside, don't breathe, don't do anything, don't associate with anyone. I mean, that's the ultimate in the divide and conquer. That's what they're aiming for. Yeah, it's nuts.
Yes, it's good you're aware of it. Live frequency waves, recipes rock, real food. Yes, absolutely. Yes. Real food that's not sprayed with pesticides, organic food, and get self-sustainable as much as possible, I would recommend.
Oh, definitely.
live frequency waves, they hide them, act like it isn't there, and then back off when you bring the evidence because they have to.
Exactly. And yeah, and again, this is the example that I give to people as well. I'm not sure the age of your viewers, but if anyone's old enough to remember the old club steering wheel locks that they used to have, I think in the 80s. Okay, and so you'd have 10 cars parked there, and one would have a club steering wheel lock on it. Now, it didn't mean that the thief couldn't, break the lock or chop the lock or hack the lock or whatever. But why would you bother when there's 9 other cars that don't have one? You just steal one of them. So it's the same thing. When you stand up and you've got evidence, you've done your research, you've got your paperwork, you've got the stuff behind you, and you start pushing back against the system goes, hang on a minute, this one's a bit annoying. There's another million Muppets that haven't said anything, haven't said boo. We're just going to let this one through to the keeper, and we'll go and chase them. We'll get the money from them. It's just much easier. Why would you do the hard work if you can just get it off the easy ones? And so you've got to be the thorn in their side. You've got to be that, squeaky wheel that needs the oil or whatever other metaphor you want to use. But you've got to keep pushing back. You've got to take action.
Yes. Otherwise, don't whinge about it, right? Otherwise, you're being part of the problem, I think, if you're not actually doing something about it.
As it says, if you're not part of the solution, then you're part of the problem. So which are you? It's as simple as that. That's what it comes down to.
100%. Live frequency waves. Find a hardship partner, re the spur debt. That was from an earlier comment.
Another option. Yep.
Thank you for that. Jacob DeHow on YouTube also can dispute that through asking them about Chapter 3 of the Constitution and guilty verdict and other for licenses. That's something there. Thank you, Jacob. Not sure.
Not sure exactly what that refers to exactly, but
Constitution, I guess.
So Chapter 3 courts. So maybe they're saying that where was the license suspension made? Was it made by a valid Chapter 3 court? So that's another argument as well. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. Live frequency waves, work and development order gets issued, courses or community service, paid CAT approximately $30 per hour, in process myself.
Oh, look, some of them are up to $1,000 a session. We've heard of people who've had like hundreds of thousands of dollars of fines going and doing various sessions, and they're getting $1,000 taken off their fines every session they do. So it just depends which program you get put on. So yeah, just have a look around.
Great. Okay, thank you for that. Live frequency waves. Jacob DeHow on YouTube. Yes, could work the promissory note, but be aware must put terms in to respond to you in time frame or deemed acceptance. I have experience with the court against the banks.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Look, and again, we know some people have definitely had success, and we know others haven't, and that's it's just seemingly the luck of the draw, which is of course not how it should be in a true legal system. Either it works or it doesn't. It's the law or it's not, and that's the difficulty.
Yes, thank you, Jacob. Live frequency waves. Sadly, once a fine has been paid, it counts as a conviction. So for me, half my issues were due to lack of funds, and now I won't be a JP for at least 5 years.
Yeah, again, that's what we keep saying. People, get that Aussie speeding fines book before you get a fine, because the minute you pay, that's it. It's finished. It's all over. You cannot do anything about it. You can't get the money back. You can't challenge it. But here's the thing. Once you do challenge it, there's endless numbers of ways that it can be withdrawn, dismissed, dragged on beyond the statute of limitations. The police officers left the force. The parking officers left. There's a million and one options. There really are if you just keep standing around and challenging. But yeah, the minute you pay, it's all over. And that's why I say to people, challenge every fine. Because here's the thing. Even if you lose, it's not going to cost you any more. They might claim costs, but there's arguments that you can run against costs as well. So you're always better off to challenge. Never, ever just blindly pay up.
Because it's all a contract at the end of the day, right?
Correct.
They're presenting you with an offer, and you can either take it or leave it. So it's, if you don't contract with them, then what can they do? So with things like rates, for people that have paid rates or they've paid taxes in the past and they want to now dispute those things, would that be different moving forward as opposed to say
same thing? You can't. Anything that's paid is paid. You've accepted it. You've accepted liability, and you've done that. As I said, as far as challenging rates is concerned, it's just not possible at the moment because there's not enough people doing it, and the councils still own the courts, and they're just getting the rulings in their favour. There's been one or two people, very, very few, but they've been in the courts for 7-8 years. So again, this is what I say to people: you've got to pick your battles. It's the same with the ATO. You've got to set your structures up correctly first. People go, "Oh, I bought my house. I want to transfer it into a trust." No, you can't transfer it into a trust. You've got to sell it to the trust at market value and pay the stamp duty and all the transfer fees and everything else. So you've got to set these structures up correctly. You've got to set up a trust and then purchase the house or the asset, whatever it is. Same with the ATO. If you've got outstanding tax debts, you've got to bring those up to speed, or you can make applications under hardship provisions, things like that. Then you've got to set yourself up under the correct structure, whether it be a trust structure or a private foundation, or however you choose to do it. Then moving forwards, then you can operate in the correct way to ensure that there are no tax liabilities. But you've got to know how to remove yourself from that system within their system, because again, the remedies are there, but you've just got to understand them. But yeah, once you've paid, too bad, so sad. There's nothing you can do. You can't get it back. That's the problem.
And future tax debts that they say you owe, what if you challenge those?
So again, if you've set yourself up, so what I'm saying is, let's say people, where are we now? Middle of June. So if people were to go out now, in fact, now is a perfect time to do it. Email the guys at info@operatintheprivate.com. Say, listen, I want to set up a private foundation. I want to operate under a private foundation. They can get that set up for you within a couple of weeks. You could technically start operating in the private under a private foundation as of 1st of July. So for the next financial year. So anything that's happened this year, yep, you've still got to do your BAS and GST and pay any debts that they say, by all means claim any expenses and whatever that you can, but you're not going to be able to challenge anything now. But then you start the next financial year, and if you've set up correctly and you've operated the right way, then you just simply have no personal tax obligations because you're not operating. It's under a private foundation. So again, it's important to set those structures up correctly. Again, do the research, go onto our website. There's information there. Grab our ebook. There's a whole section there on financial freedom. It includes private foundations, trust structures, self-managed super funds. Grab our home study course. We go into more detail. We cover it at our Gold Coast events. So there's plenty of info there for people who want it, but you can't just rush into these things. You've got to set the structures up correctly first.
They do say taxes are optional, but of course you've got to know the system to be able to work around.
But again, this is that is true. They are. It's not optional as such. It's voluntary. But what most people don't realise is that when they sign up and they go and do it, put in a job application because they want this 9-to-5 job and they want the security of a 9-to-5 job and knowing that they're going to get paid each week, and they go and apply for the job and they say, yes, congratulations, you've got the job, and you've got to fill out this form. By filling out that form, that's exactly what they are doing. They are volunteering to pay that tax. They are volunteering for their employer to take that tax out every week or fortnight or month or whatever it is. And unfortunately, once you volunteer that, you can't then go, oh, well, I don't want to be a volunteer anymore, because it doesn't work that way. That's the contract, and the contract continues for as long as that position continues. So if you want to create a new system where you operate, as a contractor, for example, under a private foundation, then you can create a new contract, or you can create another contract with another company and not make that same commitment to volunteer to pay those taxes. So look, we all make choices in life, and there's ramifications, to those choices. So you've got to think about all these choices before you make them, because sometimes they can have far-reaching ramifications down the track.
Yes, good advice there. Michelle Schaefer, who is the Crown?
The Crown, the monarch. So obviously, it used to be Queen Elizabeth II, the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland. Now, of course, that's King Charles III. But again, I urge you, go and read the Constitution. Just look at the online one. Just type in Commonwealth Constitution online, just on Google or DuckDuckGo, whatever your preferred search engine is, and just go to the covering clauses. And in clause 2, it tells you, what the Crown is. It tells you what the monarch is. So, again, happy to answer the questions, but I'm a big believer. Give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. Teach him how to fish, and you feed him for life. And we definitely want to feed everybody for life. So go and look those things up. Go and look up those definitions. Crown, monarch, those sorts of things. Indeed.
Yes, thank you, Michelle. Live frequency waves on YouTube. Title deeds in fee simple or as leaseholder. Fee simple, you can leave the house in a will. Leaseholder classification, government takes it. So I've heard, and unrealised capital gains tax as well.
So again, this is something we've covered many times on our radio shows. This is something we're going to be covering in detail in our upcoming webinar. If anyone's interested, that's on the 29th of June. So it's next weekend, next Sunday. And that's the difference between fee simple and in fee simple. And again, people go, oh, what's the difference? Sounds the same. Well, that one word, the devil is in the detail, makes all the difference. So, a valid title that you own is in fee simple. But what they've done is they've reworded all these titles. They've converted them to digital titles. They've removed that word in, and it's just fee simple. And that has totally different legal ramifications. So, again, urge you, go and look into that, do the research so that you understand the distinction.
And the word understand means stand under, right? There's a lot in the word.
Comprehend the distinctions.
Comprehend, yeah. And live frequency waves, YouTube, join an association as a member. Yes, and they can join. Your Rights have got a
we have various memberships. We have podcast memberships and ebook memberships and all those sorts of things. And again, there's plenty of free information. So just look through all the free info first, and then, as I said, if something's of interest to you, something grabs your attention, you want to learn more, then absolutely, there's plenty of other options you can go to from there.
Yes, beautiful. Get around like-minded people, get informed. Simon McCroskey on Facebook says, love your work and appreciate all the knowledge that you send out. That's lovely.
All right. Thanks, Simon.
Thank you, Simon. Click here on YouTube is sending us a hello and some smiley faces. Thank you so much. Good to see you there. Chris Betts says, many thanks, Mike. Wendy says, thank you so very much. Wendy McMenamin on Facebook. Here's a question here from Adrian Unplugged Philippines on YouTube. Are DPO departure prevention orders lawful?
Lawful, I would say no. Legal, yes. Lawful, I would say that they are in breach of the human rights that are afforded to us under the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, and one's right to freely leave and re-enter their country of choice. So this is actually something that I'm involved in with a legal battle that we're working with a couple of people on right now. So hopefully we'll have some more information on that at some point. But our position is that no, they are about the payment of a debt, and you cannot create legislation that abuses somebody's fundamental human rights due to the alleged payment or required payment of a debt.
Yes, good question there, Adrian. Well answered. Dar Davies says, are the courts maritime law? I've been told the courts of commerce and contracting operate under maritime law.
Look, that argument's been floated around. They basically operate in commerce. That's really what it comes down to. They operate under commercial law. And again, they tell you this. You can actually go and you can get. So each of the courts actually produces an annual report every year, and you can actually go and read the report for the Supreme Court of New South Wales, the County Court of Victoria, the federal courts in Queensland, whatever it is, and you can read the reports, and they tell you they are in the business of hiring out courtrooms. That's what they do, and they just conduct these commercial hearings in these courtrooms that they've hired. So that's essentially what it comes down to.
Yes, thank you. He's added a bit more to that here in this one too. He says, I've asked magistrates to tell me that I was wrong with regard to the fact that we're operating under commerce and contract, which puts us into the UC or the Uniform Commercial Code or the Clearfield Doctrine. They need a contract for anything because they're a corporation with an ABN number.
Yeah. So again, this is another thing that people sometimes get confused about. So yes, in the US, it's under the UCC, but here in Australia, we actually operate under the UCCC. So it's the Uniform Commercial Credit Code. So it's a completely different code. So don't get trapped into that. We operate under a different code here. There are different requirements, and while there are obviously some similarities, there are some fundamental distinctions. So again, at the end of the day, it is all about contract law, but just don't get confused between UCC and UCCC. What works in the US doesn't necessarily work here in Australia.
Very good. Yes. Take responsibility for yourself. Dar Davies, represent yourself. Don't tell lies. So which truth, as you know, it's about, that's 90% of the battle is actually
Absolutely.
telling.
Stand in your own truth, 100%. In your own truth and in your own power.
Yes, thank you, Dar Davies, for that. Discovering Thyself on YouTube. This is what needs to be shared. This is empowering to hear your story over needing to learn something as complex as the law game is for a lot of us. Share more of this and you'll get more folk ready to act. Thank you, Discovering Thyself.
We do every week, so just keep tuning in.
Yes, thank you. Michelle Schaefer says, love Zig Ziglar. You can get everything you want in life if you just help enough other people get what they want in life. Yes, love
Absolutely.
that. Michelle Schaefer, YouTube, SV40 is the new Vixies. Years later, cancer.
Yep.
Right. Yes.
Yep, absolutely.
Dar Davies, you have to get rid of preferential voting.
Yes. And
they are not Chapter 3 courts anymore.
No, correct. Exactly right.
Hello, afternoon there, Rex Kite. Good to see you there. Okay, Scintillant San, Facebook, feeling really motivated and inspired listening to you guys. Keep up the great work. I presume you're saying there, Mike, what are some things to keep in mind before engaging with a property litigation lawyer to ensure that I'm not going to get ripped off?
Don't engage with a lawyer. Look, I mean, everybody, there's a time and a place for everything, I guess. But the need for lawyers, sorry, is very, very few and far between. I mean, again, that's essentially what we do, is we teach people how to run their cases themselves. Unless it is something so serious, so severe, or you just simply can't do it, then I guess your only option is a lawyer. As far as how do you avoid being ripped off? I mean, again, it depends what your definition of ripped off is. They will tell you, well, their charges are $500 an hour, and that's just what it is. So we're not ripping you off. We're just charging you what we believe we're worth. Now, whether you believe they're worth $500 an hour and the results that they get you is another story. But I would always be very, very wary of using any lawyers at all, except in very, very unique, specific circumstances. Because again, especially now, with tools like OSLE, which is just an online database that you can search for anything, even with things like ChatGPT, you can use ChatGPT to find out so much about the law and do so much research. But again, if you do have to use a lawyer, like the mechanic example that I gave you before, go in armed with as much information, as much legal arguments, legal precedents. You do all the groundwork and just use them to run your case. Don't just, there's a noise in my engine, can you fix it? Because the mechanic's just going to go, sure, it's a $10,000 rebuild, no worries. Oh, I'm having this argument with a supplier, just go and fix it. Yeah, no worries, we'll charge you 10 grand and we'll run the court case. No, go and do the research, figure out the relevant legislation, go and look up the case precedents. It's all stuff that can be very, very easily done now. Then go to a lawyer and say, right, this is the research I've done. This is what I've come up with. I'd like your second opinion and tell me, based on what I've uncovered and what you might know yourself, how we're going to fare with this case, how much is this going to cost, and all the rest of it. And if you don't like what they say, go and get another opinion. It's like a doctor. If you go to a doctor and says, oh, you're going to die next week, go, oh, that's all right, thanks, I'll go and get another opinion.
Yes.
No different.
Yes. And no one knows your case like you know your case anyway.
Correct.
So
that's the thing. That's the thing. People go, oh, I feel powerless. Oh, I feel helpless and all this stuff. I hear it all the time. But with all due respect to those people, the reason is because you give away your power. You go to a doctor and ask, how do I be healthy? Well, how the hell would they know? They're only there to peddle drugs for the drug companies. Go and look at doctors. Most doctors are overweight. They're unhealthy. And you're going to go to them and ask them how to become healthy. That makes no sense. Absolutely. If you've sprained a finger and you need a splint, or you've broken your arm and you need it put back together, yes, doctors, hospitals, they are good at that stuff. But you don't go to a doctor to learn how to be healthy. You go to a lawyer for a very specific thing. Most lawyers, how can any lawyer know all the laws? They can't. It's impossible. So again, go with as much information as you can and then get their opinion. If you don't like their opinion or it doesn't make sense, go and find another one. Simple as that.
100%. Dar Davies, we call it a democracy, but it's anything but a democracy. Yes.
Yeah. It's the illusion of democracy. That's what it is. Yeah.
Yes, a lot of smoke
Yeah,
and
another
mirrors.
good video like the dot one that you talked about called The Plantation. And it's that illusion of people being able to, choose which, black slave master they vote for, and they're still under the same rules. So, yeah.
Yes, great. It can't be retrospective. Yes, thank you, Dar, for that one. Now, that email you said, Wendy's asking, what was the private foundation email?
Oh no, so it's I'll type it into the box for everybody who wants
We'll
to.
type it in there, Wendy. Thank you for that. Michelle says, WG says, God is the crown. Okay.
No. So the crown is the physical representation of God. So, and this of course is one of the arguments that you have when you go to court, and this comes back to that King of Australia thing. So the courts have to operate under authority from someone. They can't just operate a court because they feel like it. So their authority in a constitutional monarchy comes from the crown, and the crown is the physical incarnation of God. So the crown operates under the authority of God. Okay. So that is how God is brought into the courts, through the crown. But of course, if you've got no crown and you've got no true monarch, because they're operating under the Queen or King of Australia, then it's not a valid court, and everything that they say and do falls away. So that's it. That's a very simplified version of obviously a much more complex argument, but that's the essence. Pardon me.
You can see where people get confused, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. Simon Sibley, I think he's saying, where are you at, Mike? Great seminars, been to yours and a number of your seminars. Thank you, Simon. Been to quite a few.
Thanks, Simon. Yep, I remember the name. So yeah, good to hear.
Anthony Malone on Facebook. If my two friends become Australians under the Queen of Australia as POMs, are they now legal Aussies?
If they do the citizenship, and they do that whole citizenship ritual, then they become Australian citizens, yes. But we certainly wouldn't recommend that people do that. Definitely not. And the whole thing about citizenship and the fact that it's unconstitutional is, again, another whole argument that spend hours on as well.
YouTube Antasmic Oz. Do you have an opinion on John Wilson's initiative with national strike and encouraging folks on refusal to pay rates, and where is he now?
Look, I don't like to say anything bad about anybody who's bringing awareness to, the truth movement, for want of a better explanation. Having said that, there are some people that are more effective than others. Not that they're good or bad, just some had more success and some are more effective and some aren't. And for me personally, I would never, ever encourage anyone to actively challenge their rates. Not until there is a class action and we have enough people that you have the protection of the numbers. I would never urge individuals to go and challenge their rates. I'm aware of many individuals that have challenged rates and they've lost their properties as a result. And personally, again, that's just me speaking for myself, would say that anyone that does urge people to challenge their rates is being a little bit irresponsible. So again, not to say he doesn't have some good ideas and doesn't have some good concepts, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I think power in numbers for sure. Dar Davies, Gough Whitlam put Australia and the Universal Commercial Code in 1973.
Yeah, good old Gough caused a whole lot of problems. Yeah.
Corinda says, where can people find you? So we'll share that link again.
Yeah, just knowyourrightsgroup.com.au. I can put a thing up for people.
Know Your Rights Group. We'll share that up here. Thank you so much for that, Corinda. And some of the things that they'll find on your website, you've got so much stuff on there, so much great info. And your membership options as well. We've got here knowyourrightsgroup.com.au. So go there, you'll see a heap of information as well as details for the upcoming seminar on the Gold Coast, which will be the last live event at this stage indefinitely. Is that anywhere in Australia, or will you still run some in Melbourne? Do you think?
Look, we're not planning on it. The webinar series has been really, really popular. People have been asking us for it. We ran one first, and that was sort of half to 3/4 full. The second one we ran sold out. The third one, which we've got booked for next week, sold out. We have released another 50 seats, and I think we've got 15 left, so that's going to sell out as well. So people seem to be liking the webinar format, and obviously it saves people having to travel and accommodation and taking a whole weekend off work or anything. So it works for them. Obviously, it works for us without the expenses. So that's what we're going to be focused on more. We do have some very special boot camp, but these are sort of the ultimate for people who really want to get in deep. And that's a weekend event that we do, one on the Gold Coast and one in Melbourne. Our very first one was in Melbourne. Our second one was on the Gold Coast, and we're doing actually 2 this year because of the popularity of them. And it's an opportunity for, it's very limited. There's only 50 spots, and we do a dinner and a drinks, and everyone gets to sort of mix and mingle with us as the presenters and other like-minded people. So, if you've got any sort of really advanced viewers, then by all means they can have a look at the boot camp events. But yeah, they're going to be the only ones that the only actual live events that we're going to be doing moving forwards, because we've got our home study course now, which is a complete recording of the live events. So the information is accessible to people in other ways, and then that way, you don't have to take a whole weekend off. You can sit there in the comfort of your home and pause and rewind the different DVDs and things. So yeah, so this is it. So if you want to come and see us live and shake our hands and say hi, that's the Gold Coast is going to be the place to be.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Paul Woodward, hello there on YouTube. Good to see you.
Hi,
Karen
Paul, another name I know. Yep.
Karen Walker, appreciate all. Thank you, Mike and Aldwyn. Thank you, Karen. Now, good question here from Ian Jones. How do we go getting a title hard copy for my property, the title deed?
Yeah, well, good luck doing it now, though. This we've been talking about for the last couple of years. We've been urging people to do this, to go to their land titles office, demand the physical copy. Unfortunately, most of them have just shut down now, so it is very difficult now. Again, it's like anything. It's like people. I need to service my car. I need to service my car. I need to service my car. You don't do it. You don't do it. You don't do it. The engine blows. You can't go. Oh, I'll go and service my car now. You needed to service the car when the service interval came up. So yeah, we've been telling people about this for a long time. Go and get your titles. If people haven't done that yet, unfortunately, there's not a lot of option. They can, by all means, they can write in and they can request. And again, there's a whole process that we've covered. We'll be covering that again at the webinar. And they'll say it's been converted to digital, and you'll go, well, who gave you the authority to deface my title, which has got my name on it? And then there's cases that you can raise against them. So again, it's a whole process, but it's not a 2-minute conversation, unfortunately.
Yes, thank you for that, Ian. It's good to put the question out there and do your own research.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely, for sure.
Yeah. Corinda says also we need to know more. That's right. Get more knowledgeable, get informed, get empowered. Absolutely. Michelle Schaefer on YouTube, third highest cause of death, the right medication in the right dose. Really? Third highest cause of death. Amazing. And here's that email we were asking about before, info@operateintheprivate.com if you're interested in private foundations, info@operateintheprivate.com. Dar Davies said, who gave the Crown the permission to represent God?
Well, you'd need to speak to the British Parliament and the monarch to get to the bottom of that one.
Yes. There was no referendum, Dar Davies, for the Australia Act in 1986. It has no validity in law. No
yes,
referendum.
And again, there's a lot of arguments in relation to that one as well. Yep, 100%. And they took it back to the UK and lied and said that yes, there was a referendum, and again, whole story to it. So yeah.
And Corinda's inviting you on his podcast. There you go. Good opportunity there for you.
Yeah, well, absolutely reach out, Corinda. All our contact details are on our site, or just info@knowyourrightsgroup.com.au, and happy to have a chat.
Awesome. Jacob DeHow on YouTube. I meant earlier about Chapter 3 in the Constitution is the judiciary power, which the judges have the power to fine, suspend, or issue an arrest. What we have here, the police running as judges.
Yes, to some degree, but again, it's not a 2-minute conversation. There's been certain legislation that's been enacted that have given police certain powers in certain circumstances. So in some instances, they have to go to a judge or a magistrate and get a warrant, but in other circumstances, they don't. And again, obviously, there are some of those lines that have been blurred. And again, it comes down to knowing your rights, knowing what the legislation says, and knowing. So, for example, there's the DPP versus Hamilton case, a very famous case that we talk about all the time, that you do not have to stop and talk to police unless you are actually under arrest. So, but then that same principle doesn't apply if you're in a vehicle because of the operation of things like the Road Safety Act or the Road Transport Management Act, things like that. So again, there are some nuances, and this is why we do what we do and run the events that we do and all the rest of it, to teach people those distinctions.
Yes, thank you. And Jacob says, refer to the ruling of the High Court ex-biomakers court case and Kiao versus West. So look up some court cases there.
Yeah, absolutely, always. Yeah. The Boilermakers case is an important case for sure. Yep. Separation of powers, all those things. Yep.
Yes, thank you so much. We are coming to the end of our show. We've got a little bit over time, actually. We can keep going. And thank you so much for all of
the go all night, I reckon. But yeah.
There's some fantastic questions there and great information to go and research and really lean into the Know Your Rights group information that's on their website. Go to the webinars, the seminars, get informed. Thank you to everyone who's joined us here also on Instagram. We have Rachel Geyer, somebody Shake Her has joined us. Hello, Shaker. Good to see you. Engstrom, Gabrielle, Talibud, Jamil, David Laws, Psychic. Good to see you there, David, as well. Now, for those who want to come along to the Gold Coast event, there's still some spots left. They're 4th to the 6th of July. So just go onto the website for that. And anything else you'd like to share with us around helping people get empowered, Mike?
I mean, look, lots, but it's I mean, look, where people feel disempowered is when they don't have knowledge. Okay. So if you have knowledge, it's the old adage, knowledge is power. And of course, that's only partially true because it's knowledge, put into action that is true power. But yeah, having that knowledge is the first thing. When you have the knowledge, when you have the understanding, it takes away the fear. And that in and of itself, it's the removal or the elimination of fear that is the first step towards empowerment. I gave the example before when I was a little white belt and I was, fearful of the hit. You get hit a few times, and you don't have that fear. And then it's like, okay, well, now I can, now I know what I know and I know what I don't know. And again, this is one of the key things on our website. We're all at one of 3 levels. We know what we know, we know what we don't know, but it's what you don't know that you don't even know. That's the area that's causing you the problems. We know what we know. We know that we're good at maths and science, but not at English and arts or whatever. We know what we don't know. Well, I'm not a rocket scientist, and I don't know animal biology or whatever it is. But it's all these other things that you don't know that you don't even know, like generally to do with the law. And it's the fact that you don't know that is the reason that they just keep walking all over you. So once you get that knowledge, once you start to do the research and you start to learn things, and you go, oh, wow, okay, this is eye-opening. That's what gives you that, that power. People often ask me, how can you be a success coach and handle, any question that's thrown at you? Well, because once you understand fundamental human behavior, we all have the same essential fundamental fears and worries and concerns, and we also have similar, strengths and talents and abilities. It's like the periodic table of elements. There's only so many elements here on Earth. Once you understand what they are and how they interact, you can make, endless number of combinations and concoctions, from really nice things to really bad things. But it's just understanding the fundamentals and then understanding how they go together. And the law is the same. The fundamental principles of law, proper due process, validly enacted legislation, valid head of power, those sorts of things, are pretty simple to get your head around. Then you can go into some of the more specifics and nuances of laws, as in, specific legislation, specific sections of legislation, subsections of legislation that relate to things that you're interested in. Then all of a sudden you go, oh, well, now I understand how this works. It's not really that complicated. It's not really that scary. There's processes that the government has to follow, and they've either done it or they haven't done it, and bang, there you go. And that's what gives you that that confidence.
Thank you so much. I know lots of lovely comments coming through of people enjoying the show. Thank you, Michelle Schaefer. Thank you. Great interaction. Gabrielle, Uli, great show. Thank you. Anthony says, I've enjoyed your insights, only stumbled onto this page. Well, that's great that you did, Anthony. Thank you for joining us.
Lucky for you. Yeah, very good.
Thank you. Clicks enjoyed it, giving us some more smileys there. Scintillant Sand, thanks for sharing all the valuable info, guys. Truly appreciate and value it. Question here from Paul Woodward on YouTube. With the private foundation, how are you getting a bank account?
So that has to be done now through a private trust. And so it's a little bit more complex than the old simple private foundations. You actually set up a private trust, and the private trust links to the private foundation. Again, if you email info@operatingtheprivate.com, they can walk you through that process.
Yes, great. Amanda Taylor's asked, who do we contact to set up trusts and operate in the private foundation? That was the email.
Again, same thing. info@operatintheprivate.com. I'll type it in there quickly again for everyone.
Yep, info@operatintheprivate.com.
Yep.
I've got it here somewhere. Yeah, there it is.
Everyone. Yep.
Intheprivate.com. Thank you so much. That's awesome. Okay, a few more comments. We are about to wrap up the show. Thank you so much, everyone who's joined us. Paul Woodward says thanks. Discovering Thyself, really great. Thank you so much. Thank you. Awesome. Yes, I have heard it. People have had challenges setting up bank accounts with the private foundation. So yes, that's a great.
Yeah, well, again, we've got a fully, all new, completely updated presentation for 2025 to handle all of those changes that we're going to be covering at the Gold Coast events. So if anyone's aware of that stuff and you just want to come along to the advanced workshop on the Sunday just to learn all that stuff and the updated info, you can just do that as well, for sure.
Yeah, wonderful. And Amanda Taylor says, done. Thanks. Excellent. That's the action taker there. Well done.
Yeah, that's what we want. People taking action, for sure.
Great work. And I love the eye there in your picture. It's similar to the Conscious Community Global Facebook group. It's got similar eyes there. Nice. And what an amazing show it's been. Is there a favorite quote or motto that you live by, Mike, that you'd like to share with us today?
Oh, I think the one that's most poignant, given how much information that we've just shared on this broadcast, is that one. I don't recall it word for word, but it's something like the only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing.
Yes.
And hopefully, your viewers feel that I've given you, lots and lots of information, lots of places that they can go to find information that's relevant to them. So the key is now, as I've sort of said, every step along the way, is just take action. People need to take action because, there's evil going on in the world and all that stuff. And that's been throughout time, and it's probably going to continue throughout time. But, the difference that as to whether that evil prevails or not is whether the good men and women, of this planet choose to take action and do something or not. And I would urge people to please, take action. We've made it as simple as we can for people to learn the law, for people to learn about their rights, to people to learn how to stand up for themselves. We've got all sorts of products and courses and services to help empower people to do that. But now it's, you can lead the horse to water, but you can't make it drink. So hopefully I've helped in some way today to get them to that point. And now it's up to them to take that action and take the next step. And, for good people to do something so that evil does not triumph any longer.
Yes, that's great. knowyourrightsgroup.com.au. Lots more information over there. And one final question just snuck in here. Sam Dell on YouTube, with operating in the private with banks, isn't it better setting up a crypto wallet?
It's not a matter of better or worse. It's just another option. So yeah, absolutely, you can do that. So yeah, just another possibility. I mean, there's cryptos, there's cash, there's bullion, there's many ways to be paid and payment methods. So yeah, it's just about what works for you personally.
Be great to look into that, Sam. Thank you for that. Jacob says, thanks everyone, must get rolling and grab the books. Also join other groups where I myself successfully challenge many legal, like Know Your Rights and Warrior at Law. Oh yes, some other good ones. Thank you.
Good stuff. 100%.
Jacob. Ali likes this quote. Ali Schofield, good to see you. Act rather than react. Yes, that's 100%. A great one.
Yep.
Thank you. Wendy says, thank you. Dar says, the learning never stops there, and the banks can't be trusted.
There you go. Wait till you read that Bank Secrets book, and then you'll understand why they certainly can't be trusted. So
yes. Sure. Yes, amazing. And for those who want to connect with me, you can go to linktr.ee/Aldwyn, linktr.ee/Aldwyn. If you want to be seen, heard, and known, get out and make a bigger difference in the world, then let's connect. You'll find in there a link to our Global Good News Challenge, which is free every month. It's a free gratitude and good news challenge that we have, and also some free resources on my media business website as well that you'll find in there, and lots of other links to all the other socials. This interview will be going up also on BitChute, Rumble, on Spotify as well after this as well. So you can find all those links in there. All the other shows, lots of inspiring content in there. And with that, there's another quote I love, which is, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything.
Correct.
You fall for anything. And another one of my favorites is by Gandhi, which is, be the change you wish to see in the world. Be the change you wish to see in the world. Thank you so much, Mike. It's been such an amazing show. Really appreciate your time. And here's to a massively successful Gold Coast event coming up soon. And for those who are going to join us, we'd love to see you there. Thank you for all the interaction. Everyone who's joined us live today on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch. Thank you for joining us. Sending you much love wherever you are, and more kindness to self and others. Get informed, get empowered, connect with groups like Know Your Rights Group, lean in, and you will be rewarded for it. Any final words, Mike?
No, just echoing what you said. Get informed, get fired up, and get proactive. That's the key.
Yes, wonderful. Thank you so much, Mike. We'll see you again later. Bye for now.
No problem. Take care. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.